Hey, this is Brendan from Verona Lights. You're listening to the Heavy Podcast.
Melbourne's Verona Lights have very recently dropped a new album titled Minos, an accomplishment the band is excited about, proud of, and also kind of relieved about too, given that it was an album that took around 3 years to reach the point of release. You're listening to the Heavy Podcast. I'm Ez, and today I've the pleasure of talking with Verona Lights vocalist Brendan about the new album and what the band are up to. Let's go.
Never going, said it once, not showing.
Hey, I'm Ez, and you're listening to the Heavy Mag Podcast. Today, I have vocalist from Melbourne band Verona Lights, Brendan, with me. Hey, dude, how you going?
How's it going? Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. You guys have just dropped a new album, and we'll get to talking about that real soon. But I want to get like the housekeeping type questions out of the way first.
Yeah.
So can you like give us a brief background of Verona Lights for listeners that may not be overly familiar with you guys?
Yeah. So the band's been around for a while now. They dropped their first album long before I joined. They had a different vocalist, different bass player. The music was very different. It was a lot, it wasn't heavy at all. There was not really any heaviness to it, but there was still a style that we've kept now after they released that album. Vocalist left, bass player left. I swooped in and brought some of my death metal background, and we got in our guitarist brother on bass, and he's brought in his background of music, and we've sort of blended together to make what was the band's second album, which had a bit more heaviness to it, a bit more alt rock. And now with Minos, the new album, we've sort of dipped into even heavier as we've gone along. I don't know if that's going to keep happening, but it's just been a constantly changing sound and a constantly changing feel, and it's evolved a lot.
But it sounds like it's been a very organic and natural evolution, though.
Yeah, we've all brought in just different influences and felt more comfortable bringing those influences in as time has gone on. So if you listen to the first album and listen to Minos back to back, you would think they are completely separate bands.
Yeah, well, I was going to actually ask about the influences that you guys all share. And are you very similar in your musical tastes, or is there some vast differences? And how does that sort of affect your songwriting and what their end result is in terms of the songs that you guys produce as Verona Lights?
There's some overlap with our taste, but we all sort of have our own extremes that we go. I'm definitely into, I think, the heavier side of things out of, out of everybody. Again, I did death metal for so long, so I really like to, kick and scream and punch faces in. They had a lot of new metal influence, which again, there's crossover. I love it a little bit, but like they're really into new metal in ways that I just have never been.
Yeah.
But we all love, similar bands like Deftones. We all love Deftones. We all love even a little bit of Red Hot Chili Peppers, a bit of funk, and yeah, like I said, it has evolved over time, with that first album bringing in just a couple of members' influence from a little bit of new metal, a little bit of like poppy rock, a little bit of like there's the prog elements in there for sure. And then when I swooped in, it was, hey guys, I've just done death metal forever, so I'm gonna scream if that's cool. It'd be really sick if we had like, almost a breakdown. Would be nice. Yeah. All right. Let's do that. And then with this new album, I should backtrack. With Adrestia, which was the last album, I didn't write any of the music, and neither did our bass player. That music was already sitting there when we joined. It had just been sitting there for years. And like I got to do the lyrics and the vocals how I felt was right, but I didn't get to actually write any music. So with the new album, providing riffs and ideas, and a bass player wrote like 2 or 3 of the songs all by himself, like with no input from us. He was like, hey guys, what do you think of this? We were like, yeah, sick, we're going to use that in its entirety, no edits, you're great. So it was a collaborative effort, and bringing in just all of our influences in different ways. And that's why I think this new album got even heavier because I was allowed to write stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to talk about the writing process, but just as a side note, when you said like your background is very much in death metal and you brought the screaming element to the band, were clean vocals new to you, or because you obviously do both in Verona Lights? So was that something that you developed from joining the band?
Yeah, I'd only ever done so I'd almost exclusively been doing harsh vocals, which I really worked on for a long time to try and expand my range with harsh vocals. I'd sort of done clean singing before, but I was not really confident with it, and I'd never had the practice, didn't have the time, and didn't have the motivation to work on it really.
I find that very surprising, having heard your music, and I love the dynamics of your voice. So
Thank you.
that's something I wouldn't have expected at all.
It was rough, to be honest. Like, I when I joined Verona Lights, I was like, oh, I've never really done the clean singing thing, but I'd like to give it a go. Like, we'll see. And it was the kind of thing that I did at home or in the car. I'd stick on a CD and just sing along with that, but not something I ever. Yeah, I'm going to be a singer.
Mhm.
And I've gone back actually recently to listen to like the audition tape that I sent in and listen to like the first demos I did when we were like getting a feel for sound. And fuck, yeah, I'm not one to just talk myself up ever, but like listening to some of those demos, like, oh shit, okay, I've actually improved over time because it was wrong.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you? You always listen back on those and go,
Flat,
"Oh,
flat, flat,
that's
flat,
rough."
sharp, sharp, flat.
Hey,
Yeah.
we've all got to start
Oh,
somewhere.
for sure. And the boys have really helped me develop my voice as well, like playing with different dynamics of clean singing and throwing in elements of harsh singing as well. Like, it's still a learning process. I still don't think I'm a fantastic singer or anything competent. Maybe I can hold a tune, but I'm still learning and still developing and still exploring.
That's the way to be as well. I think that it can be quite limiting to stick to one style of vocals, and when you
Absolutely.
combine the two, the world just opens up a whole lot more. So, but yeah, that's really cool. I did not know that about you guys. So, I'm gonna chuck another like stock standard question your way. The band name, is there a story behind it?
As far as I'm aware, every time, I think Mick, our guitarist, came up with the name. Every time I've heard him ask that question, he's given a different answer. But as far as I'm aware,
This is your opportunity now to make up another answer
set the
again.
record straight.
No, not set the record straight. Just come up with another story. Let's
Yeah.
just we'll start the legend of like
Yeah.
the band
He's
name.
really into
origins.
Romeo and Juliet. As far as I'm aware, he was in Italy.
Mhm.
And he was in Verona and he saw the lights and thought they looked really nice and thought that'd be a nice band name.
Oh, that's really quite wholesome.
That's a boring answer, but
Yeah,
yeah.
it's boring, but it's really it's
I
quite
think that might be
quite
it.
wholesome.
All right, cut that. Now let me tell a fake story where
So let's talk about the new album then, Minos. It's been out almost a week. I'll get to discussing the lyrical themes and stuff in a bit, but let's talk about the production first. So the record was a fairly significant amount of time in the making. I mean, no, it's no Chinese democracy, but
felt like it. It felt
so
like it.
tell us about the writing and recording process.
We started writing music even before we'd released Adrestia, the last album. There were songs sitting there that were just on the cutting room floor. We were like, oh, do we put that in? No, it's not quite there yet, or whatever. And there were riffs that had been sitting around before I'd even joined the band. I had riffs from 4 bands ago. We all had sort of fragments and bits and pieces that were sitting around, and it wasn't until, okay, Adrestia is out, we can sit in that for a little bit and come back together and go, okay, let's piece together what we have, write some new stuff and throw it all in. And before we knew it, we kind of had like half the album, or what felt like at the time, half the album just sitting there ready to go. And we were like, oh, we're going to put another one out so soon. Like, this is going to be great.
Famous last words.
Yeah, well, exactly. And it just took so much reworking. It was always, oh, that could go on a little bit longer. That could go on a little bit shorter. we wrote like I think 3 full songs that got cut in the end because we were like, no, it's not there yet. It's not good enough, you know. And as time went on with that writing and creative process, that it's not good enough was like, yeah, but something has to go there. And it was this constant battle of we've got to release something because we've got this stuff sitting right here ready to go. And yeah, but it's got to be good. You know, if everyone's waiting for this thing, it's got to be good.
Yeah.
The hardest thing in the end for the writing process was, again, we had this mishmash of riffs and ideas, and they would go well together musically, but I could not think of anything to go lyrically or vocally. Like they were just these 3-minute songs, 5-minute songs where I didn't know what to do with them. Like nothing was clicking right. You know, the melody that I was coming up with would sit awkwardly, or the timing would sit awkwardly, and I didn't know what to do. I sort of got over that for the most part, but when it came to what is the title track.
So do you think that was a little bit of like writer's block then, or was it just?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It was writer's block, and it was pressure on myself. Again, that I've got to come up with something. I've got to come up with something. Go, 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 go. Nothing's happening. Yeah.
Have you seen the old Tenacious D HBO episodes, like TV show that they did back in the day?
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Yeah, do you remember the episode where they're like forcing songwriting, and it's just like they're sitting in a wading pool trying to like get inspiration from
magic going.
eating. That's what I imagine. You're just sitting there, like in your underwear, eating ice cream in a wading pool, like Jack Black, just like, come on, make it happen.
Yeah, something, please. Awful process, but I mean,
what did they say? You can't manufacture inspirado.
That's true. That's it.
Anyway, I just threw you right off course there.
No, it was good. Oh, I love Tenacious.
So you got there in the end. Did the pandemic have anything to do with sort of the hold up as well? Because you started to release stuff. Like you released at least one song right pre-COVID, and then all of a sudden that shit kind of hit us hard.
Yeah.
As well.
So because we record everything in house, and that was the way we did it. We would go to the studio and record all our bits and pieces, and then sort of work through it worksheet style. And then once the pandemic hit and we were all locked in our houses and I couldn't drive over there to do vocals for a day, it was very, oh shit, what do we do? We've got all this music and it's got no vocals. And again, this is what was killing me. And again, added to the pressure was musically, the album was 99% done. Lyrically, I knew what I wanted to do. I had demos for everything. We just could not get the vocals on there. Thankfully, we did a GoFundMe or a Kickstarter GoFundMe, one of the crowdsourcing, I think it was GoFundMe, where we basically called upon everyone to say, hey, we need to get me some recording equipment so that I can finish this album at home, because who knows how long we're going to be inside for. If you guys want to do it, then it's there. And
Smart
it was
idea.
very much, we don't expect anyone to actually do this, but if you can fund a mic, a little mixer, or just the very bare essentials to get what I needed to get it done, you could get it done. And some very generous people were kind enough to help and sorted me out with some gear that helped me get the rest of it done. So I think probably 80% of the vocals on the album were done in my house, just at here where I'm sitting now.
What did that feel like though, to have people come forward and actually contribute like that? Because I know, like in my own band, I'd just be like, "Oh my god, we're not worthy," But
absolutely unreal.
Yeah,
honestly,
how cool is that?
We took the names of everybody who contributed to that. They're on the inside cover of the album, of the CD album, because it literally wouldn't have happened without those people.
Yeah, that's super cool. I love that. And so was the album entirely self-produced, or did you guys utilize a studio and a producer?
All self-produced, yeah.
Yeah.
Has his own studio. Our guitarist has his own studio where he records, mixes, and we actually mastered it in-house as well. With the last album, we sent it off for mastering. Um,
Yeah.
and the earlier singles we dropped, they were mastered separately, but everything
Mhm.
else, yeah, he just did pretty much by himself with us in his ear going, turn that up, turn that down.
That's super cool.
Convenient is what it is.
Yeah, well, that is exactly right too. I was fortunate enough to review the album, so I had it in my possession about a month before its release. And so I've had a fair few decent listens. But one thing I kind of skipped over in my review that was published because I was scared to look like a dickhead if I was on the wrong track, basically. But there appears to be a recurring like theme in the lyrics or recurring lyrics throughout the record. So is it a concept album or a story of sorts, or was I on the right track? Can you shed some light?
Yeah, it is a concept album. It's pretty loose in its concept, but there is strings that sort of tie it all together. I went really hard with a sort of concept and story on the previous album, and I wanted to sort of continue, not necessarily that story, but continue along that same thought pattern from the last album. So yeah, no, there is
Hmm.
absolutely, if you follow through the track listing, it sort of is meant to take you on a journey, on a contextual journey.
Yeah, because the ending track Samsara
Yeah,
is like I felt like I heard like sort of throwbacks to previous tracks in the
yeah, yeah.
album in that song. But like I said, I was like, well, I'm not gonna say anything about that in case I'm
Just in case.
completely wrong. But yeah, no, that's cool. So where does the story kind of lie then?
um,
Are you willing to divulge that information?
I'm definitely one for everyone should take what they get from hearing it.
Yes.
But I mean that is entirely different from what I feel from like what I felt when I was writing it and what I feel when I listen to it now and what I take from it now versus what I was putting into it when I was writing it. So
Mm,
in the last album, again, I keep calling back to it just because it was so, it was a huge part of putting together this one. I wanted them to follow
mm,
on. There was definitely a clear cut story of a person sort of rediscovering themselves and finding they didn't necessarily like the person that they were. And at the end of that album was, well, which way do I go with this now? Do I go back and fix those things or do I try and forge ahead and create a new now? Which way is the better way to go? Um,
and is that what that album ended with? Did you say?
yeah. So
Oh, I love that. I love that open
ended,
ended.
right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
And Minos is kind of, if Adrestia was a story of self-discovery, Minos is an album of self-destruction almost. It's the cyclical mental health things that we go through, the cycles that we always go through when we're struggling. That is, I want help, I can't ask for help, I'm going to do
Mm,
better, I can't do better. I'm sad. Oh, of course you're sad. Like it's
mm.
those same cycles
I'm
that we go
not
through.
worthy.
Yeah, exactly. And so that is again using Greek mythology just because Greek mythology is so interesting.
And the words are so pretty.
Oh, they really are, aren't they?
Yeah. And they make you sound so much smarter when you use them.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, I get away with so much. Um, yeah, I mean, it's there's something about Greek gods that are so human and they're petty and they might be strong in some aspects but are incredibly weak in other ways mentally and the way that they put themselves out in these stories and there's something relatable about that like there's something relatable about that in the way that we want to be perceived and the way that we put ourselves out to the world hiding our own weaknesses and sometimes embracing them and showing them and how we all do that in our own different ways. Someone might wear it all on their sleeves and be totally fine with everyone seeing their weaknesses, and others will hide that. And it just creates this really interesting interpersonal thing between people. And you know who you're talking to. If you're talking to someone who is vulnerable or not, and how much vulnerability you're willing to show on the outside, and that combined with again that cyclical mental health stuff that um
Mm.
I think we can all relate to on some level.
Absolutely, and especially on the back end of the pandemic, which really,
Mm.
I feel like if people didn't struggle beforehand, they suddenly worked out what it's like to be
Oh
in
yeah,
in the shoes of people that do. So yeah.
absolutely. And some of the tracks on there, lyrically, I wrote before the pandemic even
Mm.
hit, and while I'm recording these vocals in isolation, thinking, "Fuck, this is fitting."
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, how has this all worked out? Yeah, but to take it back, I'm waffling on about shit.
I love it. It's good.
Oh, I could do it for days, so I better not. I draw on a lot of that Greek mythology, a lot of personal experience, and use those things to mirror, um, again, normal mental health struggles that a lot of people have, and abnormal ones as well. And that's what the album is. It's sort of coming to an acceptance and understanding of your own suffering and of your own way of dealing with trauma, with mental health, with those cycles, with how you choose to overcome, if you can overcome. Some can't, and that's something that I had to deal with while writing the album. Lost lost a good friend while I was writing it to their mental health, I should say.
I'm sorry to hear that.
It was something to draw from, and there's a memory there that I get to have, and my little letter to them, and to myself and to everybody.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and then you've also got the aspect of creating and music being very cathartic and being an outlet for those sorts
Yeah.
of emotions. And, I think uh, everyone comes into our life for a reason and everything has a lesson.
Mm.
And, I guess if you can take anything from that, you can say that you're here and you've learned something from your friend, and you've also been able to give the world something creative.
Yeah.
And if that's a legacy, if that's a legacy for that person, then that's no, it wasn't in vain.
Yeah. I good. I'm glad.
I'm sorry if I just took us down a little emotional path, but yeah.
No. Place to be. It's an emotional album. There's a lot of feelings in it. I can't help myself. Like, I've put my feelings in my music, in my lyrics, in my vocals.
And that I will say that shines through 100% to listening to it. You can tell, and I'm pretty sure that's something that I did write in my review, that the emotions portrayed are very obvious, which is, it's something that I feel like a lot of vocalists miss the mark sometimes, because they're either focusing on technicality, which is great to sound perfect and whatnot, but then
Yeah.
what do? You lose some of that emotion, or you can be so emotional that the vocals kind of sound a bit shite.
Yeah.
So to find to find that sweet spot is, like, to me, it's a sign of a really great vocalist. So I think you nailed it.
Thank you. That means a lot from a vocalist as well.
Thank you. So pat each other on the back here.
No, I wanted it to be that way. I wanted it to be an emotional experience. I still get emotional listening to these songs that I've been listening to for 5 years.
That's awesome.
There is an ultimate message in there of, mental health struggles are going to be with many of us for a long time, if not forever.
Yes. Yes.
How we choose to deal is sort of our own battles and our own journeys to go through, and we all have our battles. That's it. That's accepting that.
100%. Especially as creative people, I think it's just one of those hand in hand things. I don't know whether it's the sensitivity of the creative mind or what it is. Or we just see the world differently or something. But
We're all just miserable, aren't we?
I know. There's been, like, I went a couple of years ago. I went to therapy, and then I was like, "Oh, do I want to do this? Because maybe I won't be able to write songs anymore."
Absolutely, there's a fear there.
I can't get happy.
Yeah.
What do I write about?
Start writing disco. What am I going to do?
So one of my favorite songs on the record is "The Sleep," and I have insider information that that song was originally only an interlude. So is that right?
Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah.
was gonna be just a little musical break before Samsara, which is the big, the hitter.
Yes, the big
Meant to be the
bad
beat
ending.
down at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So what was it that made "The Sleep" become a real boy?
I don't know. I really don't have an answer for that. It was very much the idea was, again, you mentioned it before, Samsara has those callbacks to the rest of the album. It was meant to be almost a dreamlike state before entering the last track. It's meant to be this it was meant to be a almost unintelligible but kind of pretty days that you would get lost in, and then the thumping drums of Samsara would sort of bring you back in. That was the idea. And so I was like, okay, I'll put some vocals in there. I'll throw some lines down, and we'll layer them in the mix, and we'll just have them floating in the ether. They shouldn't be something to focus on. They'll just be present. And then it was, well, hang on, that was a pretty good line. Let's do that again, but louder. And oh, okay, we've got a spot here. Maybe I'll put a little bit more vocals in, and there's a big spot here. Put a guitar solo in there. He doesn't do guitar solos. We had to talk him into it. It just became a song. It there was no purpose to it. It was just adding and adding and adding and adding to it.
So again, just that organic growth and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's a very impactful song. And the first time I listened to the album and I was at work and I was just working away and just sort of, letting it sort of just consuming it. And then that song come on and I stopped what I was doing and I messaged your guitarist and I was like, dude, this
Right.
song. So that's how I know that it was only supposed to be an interlude at first, because he told me, oh, we weren't even going to make that a whole song. So yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
super good. I love that one. So do you have a favorite song on the album then?
Oh,
Don't you hate it when people ask you that question? Yeah. Do you have a favorite child?
they're all my babies. It's hard to choose. Yeah. I think it's either going to be like there's two tracks that really like for the emotional weight that I've put into them is Anchors. I really enjoy that song.
Yeah.
And Samsara. That's I'm probably more proud of Samsara as a music piece than I am of anything I've ever done. I just really love that track.
Fair, totally fair. We can't talk about the songs on the album though without talking about the titular track, which is Minos, and the inclusion of guest vocals from Head PE's Jared Gomes. So how did that come about?
Well, I was talking before about the writer's block, that struggle of I don't know what to do here, I don't know what to do here. And Minos was that last song that I had no vocals for. It was just too hectic. I could not put anything down. I said, let's get a guest vocalist on. This is my little catch of like
Make it someone else's problem.
make it someone else's problem.
Smooth.
Yeah, it really was that. And because they'll do something that'll inspire me, and then we can work on it together. And we had a few people we wanted to work on. We had some instrumental people in mind that we approached and said, hey, do you want to like make this a full instrumental jam, and you throw some guitar stuff on, or some bass stuff on. Another vocalist friend of mine, I approached them, but they're also releasing an album very soon, so he was a bit busy. I couldn't ask him, and it just came around that Jared was open to give us a hand with it. So we've been in contact with him since we supported Head PE when they came out to Melbourne a couple of years back, and we've just stayed in contact.
I only just found that out, and that's so badass. I love that.
It was really cool.
How much weed was like being thrown around though?
Oh my god, so much.
I went and saw them on their last tour, and I saw someone just piff a massive bag of
I'm
on
not
the
surprised.
stage. Yeah, it was like basically throwing several $100s on the stage, but
I've never seen a green room use that literally.
Yeah. So what's what was the process behind his role on the song then? I know you sort of just touched on it, but so was it completely vocal free when you sent it to him?
Completely and utterly vocal free. It was just the instrumental track, and we said, dude, here it is.
Have at it.
Have at it. What have you got? What speaks to you? And he messaged us back and said, "This is sick. Give me a minute," and he sent us back. Yeah, what ended up being on there, and
That's
he
awesome.
did.
So did you give him an idea of what the rest of the songs on the album, like just like so that there was a tie-in theme, or
Yeah, I gave him the rough outline of like, okay, this is what the album's about, and this is what this song, its place in the album. This is what it is talking about. This is what we want the themes to sort of explore. And yeah, he really went for it. He did what was now the first verse and that sick book. And that then inspired me to go, okay, now I know something. I'm going to now pepper in my stuff. And we blended what he had with what I came up with. And that sort of became the track. And we sort of worked it all out like a puzzle.
yeah, that's awesome. And your two vocal styles really complement each other too. And I must say, like, it does sound like, you guys have sung together a bunch of times like that. It really sounds very tidy. And I say that because, like, having guest vocals seems to be a bit of a trend at the moment with a lot of bands, more so than it has been in the past.
Right.
And so I feel like as a listener, oftentimes I'll listen to a new song. It'll say, this band featuring this person. And you're like, oh, they've given them the chorus, or they've given them their own verse. And it kind of just is it's a bit contrasting. Like that guest person really stands out, which I guess in one way you want that. But at the same time, yes, sometimes it can sound like having that guest vocalist there just for the sake of saying featuring such and such. Whereas I do find with Minos, like the blending of the vocals, like you can tell his style. If you're familiar with his band, then you could listen to that track and go, oh, hang on a minute, that's Jared.
Yeah,
but at the same time, it sounds like though your vocals and his vocals belong together, and the song is a complete package rather than just like, hey, we just stuck this cherry on top.
Yeah.
So yes, kudos to you for that. I think it's just yeah.
Well, the song wouldn't exist if it wasn't for his input.
Your inability to come up with something.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah. And he smashed it.
The writer's block helped in some way.
It did. It was a blessing in disguise.
Everything happens for a reason.
Once I heard what he did, it just unlocked something in my brain that went, oh, okay.
Those moments are great too.
Let's blend, yeah.
Let's talk about your music videos. So you've released a video for The Watcher, which came out last year. You've got a lyric video for Comfort, which was a couple of months ago?
Yeah, I think so.
And then the visualizer for Minos. Are you planning any other visual media to accompany any other songs on the album, or?
I'm not. There's nothing planned right now. Like we haven't got anything in the works currently. We've got ideas that are sitting around. They're like, oh, that could be cool, and that'd be fun to do. There's still like half the album that we haven't made anything visual for. So, Labyrinth of Gold we did, mid-pandemic, so mid-lockdown. Yes. So, I recorded my parts of it. If you go back and watch that video, I'm actually sitting on the floor of my bathroom. I'm in the toilet. Because it was the only room that had tight enough walls that I thought would fit the visual. So it's just a funny thing.
The things that we were forced to do during the pandemic. We had to get creative, even more creative.
Nothing planned as of yet, but a million ideas. I've got a notebook that is just full of like, oh, I'd love to try this. I'd love to do this. I'd love to film here for this song. A lot of that sitting around.
Doesn't it make you jealous of people that have budgets, like decent budgets for creating videos? Because I don't think people realize just how difficult it is to pull that shit together on a shoestring budget. You can see it in your head, but then actually making it happen and just finding locations is an absolute pain in the ass.
Yeah, find a location, rent the location, get film and audio, and have someone directing and someone moving the cameras around and lighting, and we're going to need actors maybe,
Yeah.
You're going to edit it.
Yeah. The editing process.
Yeah, no, I think we've done the most elaborate music video we did was the first one I ever joined, when I first joined the band, which was half on green screen and half walking through the woods with a GoPro. That was it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the most elaborate we've ever had to do. Um, and again, big ideas, no budget.
Yeah. It sucks. You guys played a show at the Bendigo Hotel to launch the album on October 21st. How did that go?
That was awesome. We played with Terrestrials, good friends. They dropped a single that night as well, which is just amazing. Love Terrestrial. And some really other sick bands. 4 Miles and Ivy Black played, and I'd never heard of either the band, and they both just surprised us a lot. It was any night at the Bendigo Hotel's a good night. I love the Bendy. And I couldn't think of a better place to launch an album. Had a lot of friends there, and got to share some new songs with new people and say, hey, we've just released this, enjoy, it's out to the world now, and formally send it off. It was a really good night. I got a little bit, we had a 50-minute set, which is longer than I'm used to. I had to play the stamina management game a little bit. Some songs like, okay, chill, pull it back, pull it back, pull it back. For some songs I can't help it. I got to get into it. And yeah, by the end of
Oh
the
my
night,
God. It's the eternal struggle for me. You tell yourself in your head, like, just dial it back.
yeah,
Just I'm not gonna go cry. I'm gonna pace myself. Pff, second year up on the stage,
adrenaline.
all goes to shit.
Yeah, I was very hoarse by the end of the night, but totally worth it.
Yeah.
Totally worth it.
50 minutes. That's a
It was good.
well, I mean, because in the usual circumstances, yeah, it's what 30 to 40 minutes tops that you get. Sometimes
30 to
45
40,
if you're really lucky.
throwing in that extra couple of songs, and them all being tracks that I love, throwing myself around for live.
Mm.
It was like a marathon. It was really good.
Had you been holding any of those songs back from like your live set prior?
No, they're all tracks we've played before in dribs and drabs, throughout the last couple of years. But there was something about playing some of the new ones back to back. It was just like, oh, new music, even though it's
Yes.
not new to us. It was like, oh, new, and hearing them, and playing them back to back was just so exciting. So cool.
Yeah, awesome. And how has the reception been overall for the album now that it's been out for almost a week?
Really, really positive. Had a lot of really good feedback. One very lovely review from Heavy Mag. And yeah, a lot of friends and family reaching out saying they really like it. People that I know that aren't into heavy music going, yeah, I didn't like this song very much, but because the heavier ones, but still saying, oh, but there's other stuff on the album that I really like. It's still good.
Yes.
Um,
I do think that there is a bit of a universal appeal, like, because it's not just all heavy, raw, in your face stuff. Like and when I wrote my review too, one of the biggest standout things for me was the track ordering. If you're old school and you listen to an album from start to finish, I don't know, lots of people with streaming services and that these days we don't do that, but I really appreciate well thought out track ordering and the flow of one song into another, and that doesn't have to be in the case of like a concept album. I know you said it's a loose concept album, so obviously you want to tie things in, but even just songs that are standalone songs, it's quite important, I think, to have a really nice flow.
Yeah.
And what I appreciated about Minos was that, gets you to a point and then it lowers you down and then it gets you back
Absolutely.
to that point again. And there's a lot of breathing space.
Ebb and flow, right?
Yeah, it's great. Really, really well done in terms of your track ordering.
Thank you. It was something that we spent a fair bit of time nailing down, because like it being loose concept, there was definitely a rough order of where things should go lyrically, but even up to the week before release, it was like, oh, I've just listened through it again. Can we move this track 2 tracks later? There's a lot of this fine tuning of where we wanted it to go. And yeah, I mean, this is the one that felt the best.
The amount of thought put into it, to me, shows.
I'm glad, because like you said, with streaming services, you never know what anyone's going to hear first. especially with Spotify will show this is the
Mm.
most listened to song. Like, yeah, but you don't have the context of what came before it, so it's not the same.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I know I found with the EPs that my band has released, the first tracks always get like heaps of listens,
Yeah,
and then the poor last track, which are always put last because they're
the
impactful,
biggest
like
ones.
they're the last song for a reason because you want to end with a bang or whatever, and it's like, oh no, the interest dropped off by the end, and I don't
Yeah,
think it's got
always.
anything to do with the song and its quality, or it's just listener retention and very bad attention spans of people these days. I think that's all
Yeah,
that
I
is.
think so too. It's interesting though, with just about with regarding reception of the album as well. And you said before the sleep being a song that has stuck out to you. It's like the most played song, and it's the second last track on the album.
I saw that.
And yet the last track on the album, the biggest one, it's not even close. It's so
Hmm.
strange. It's really come out of
I
nowhere
know.
as being something that people like listening to, which is great. I love that it's being enjoyed, but it's so odd. It's of all the songs.
I feel like this sort of thing as well really highlights that because there's a lot of people in the industry that want to tell you the formula for how you do this and how you do that and make your songs stand out. Like
Mhm.
if you follow this formula, then you're more likely to reach more people and impact this and that. I think it's all a load of toss.
Absolutely.
I think it's just a matter of, because what you've just said is a perfect example that you just really can't tell which way it's going to go and what songs people will latch onto.
Honestly, I think in the current day of being a creative person, there is this focus on algorithm, this focus on the numbers game. And
Oh, I know. And it's exhausting.
it is, and it sucks your creativity out of what you're doing. I think if you think too hard about,
Hmm.
we haven't written a song that doesn't have this popular thing in it, so we better do that. It's like, no, fuck off. Write what you want to write. Write what
Yes.
feels good, what comes out
Yeah,
of you.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on. 100%. So, what is the next step for you guys then? So, I know you've just told me earlier about the album prior to Minos being open ended, and you've kind of followed on from that with Minos. Is that going to be a continued direction, or are you going to look at just clean slating it for the next lot of songs? And please tell me we don't have to wait like 3 years for the next lot of new music. Oh, I was going to say, I'm looking at your face right now, and you're like, how can I lie to her right now?
No, there's so regarding new stuff for sure. Our guitarist is currently rebuilding his entire home studio. That's going to have enough room for us.
Yes, I saw that on social media.
Yeah, he's been working really hard, like actually building this building from scratch. So once that's done, it's pretty much going to be our HQ, somewhere that we can go, have a couple beers, chill out, whip out some guitars, and write some music together. And it's going to be set up so that we can record and write and just go through, that creative process regularly rather than, okay, guys, I'll see you in 6 months for
Yeah.
a writing session that's going to be 14 hours long.
And everyone wants to die by the end of
Yeah,
it. So do you guys all live within fairly close proximity to each other?
within about an hour of each other. It's, not too bad. Melbourne's all right for that.
When you guys write, are you do you because I know these days with all the technology we have, and the ability to send files and stuff, like I started in bands before we had any of that, and you possibly did too. And so writing
Mm.
songs had to be jamming, and you had to remember it next week because there wasn't really any way to record it
Yeah.
or put it down or anything like that.
How'd that thing go? That thing where you did the thing.
Yeah. I guess I'm used to being part of like what they call a jam band, and our songs come together when we're all in the room together and we're all sort of bouncing off each other, and I feel like that seems to be a way of writing that is disappearing more and more. So what about you guys? How do you do a bit of both, or are you more inclined to write when you're all in the room together?
Yeah, it is a bit of both. It is a bit of both. It'll be, we will all have a riff or a vibe that we come in with. And, I might write half a song or a full song by myself, but it's always with the intention of it being changed. So,
Yes.
I'll have 5 minutes of music and go, all right, guys, let's go for it. What do we got? All right, Frankenstein, take that out, take that out.
You come in with a skeleton and everyone sort of starts to build the flesh around it.
And that's how Minos was built. It was a lot of us having, a skeleton of a song, and then we all just throw parts into it and then mold. Look what I've made. And we have a finished piece, There was a lot of that.
Yeah.
And that's sort of been the process for this whole thing. Again, Adrestia, the last album, was written before I joined, so I didn't get to musically, like I still had some say on some parts of that album. I got to change some of the music, but I didn't get to write. Whereas this one was like I had input on the writing, and yeah, we all just sort of freeformed it. There are songs that didn't make it onto the album for one reason or another. There was one song that I've had sitting in my pocket since high school. It's just like, oh, it's a really cool riff, a really cool thing that I just want to use. And guys, let's try this. And we tried it. We wrote a whole song around it. We had it pretty much finished. And then we got the album listing and said, you know what? It's not very good. Let's get rid of it. But yeah, that is the process for sure.
Oh, I always feel like mixed emotions when it comes to throwing a song out, because you've put time and effort and emotions and thought, and then just to just bin it, and you're like, oh, can we salvage this? But sometimes it's just
there were lyrics from the ditched song that I then put into other songs on the album, so it ended up being kind of recycle bin. Not a couple loss.
Sure. And those lyrics probably fit better where they went.
Much better in the end.
Yeah.
And you were saying before about like the open-endedness of the last album and the concept of this album. The open-endedness at the end of the last album was like, okay, you've gone on your journey of self-discovery. What do you do with this information, kind of thing? And that's where it ends off. This album, Minos, is very much, I have this information and now I'm feeling about it. I don't know what to do about it. I just have it and I'm in it and I don't feel good. I just feel bad about it. And, the other way that could go, the other path out of that is moving forward and exploring what else you can do, rather than sitting in this misery, I suppose, is taking things, learning from these things, and then moving forward. So I guess whatever we do next is going to be the moving forward. It's going to be something completely different. It's going to be whatever happens.
Yeah. So Minos is like the shadow work, and the next one is possibly going to be what eventuates from that. Hopefully healing and some cool shit.
Yeah. Or it'll be even miserable and
even bleaker.
Yeah, who knows? We might go full like deathcore on the next one and crack some skulls. Who knows? But no, I'm looking forward to seeing where we go from this one, because we now, as far as I'm aware, besides a few riffs here and there, we're not coming into this with any ideas. Like any new music we make now is going to be completely off the cuff, completely fresh, completely based on the now. So. I feel like we left our baggage behind on the last two albums. All the stuff we've been holding on to is out, and now it's fresh.
So your next one is going to be a very, very clean slate.
Yeah, and I'm super interested to see where it goes.
So then, are you guys writing at the moment, or you just kind of doing the gigging thing and basking in the release of Minos?
We're basking. Definitely basking. Such a long wait and so much time and so much pressure, and there's this release and relief now that it's out for people to enjoy. It's doing gigs, it's meeting other bands, and making friends, and just taking it all in.
Yeah, cool.
Even now with meeting new bands and making new friends and playing heaps of shows, we get to hear all this new music that we can soak up. And hear things, we go, oh, I like the sound of that. Let's try that, be inspired.
Writing and releasing music really is like, you start off so enthusiastic and so full of ideas, and then by the end you kind of like this dirty wrung out sponge that just just looking a bit sad and
surrounded by takeaway containers and
yeah, you got to kind of like dry out and freshen up again before you start the process all over again.
Yeah, and I think before we start wringing the towel, it's definitely a let's just enjoy that this is done. Let's enjoy that creative process that we went through is now over, which is a good thing and also a bad thing. And just sit in it for a minute before we really start getting into work. I mean, I can't imagine. I already have riffs building. I'll sit on the couch with a guitar for 5 minutes and come up with something. They go, "Ooh, I've got to show that to the boys." It won't take long before we're already raring to go, I think. But for now it's just enjoying other people enjoying.
Yeah, absolutely. So what gigs have you got coming up then?
That's a good question. We have a show on the 16th of December at Bad Decisions. We're going to be playing with Ransom Review, Outer Worlds. Ransom Review and Outer Worlds. That was another band. And Bad Decisions is in Fitzroy.
Mm-hmm. Have you played there before?
I have not played there before. I don't recognize the name.
It's a really little venue, sort of long and narrow. It's a fun little place.
On tight and sweaty, my favorite. Yeah, no, I never played there, but it looks sick. I'm looking at pictures right now. Looks awesome.
And is that all you've got coming up? Are you got plans for any sort of getting out and about in the new year?
There are whispers on the wind, hushed tones of touring around the country. Nothing has been confirmed, and I'm going to use this interview to actually pressure the band into doing it. So, guys, I really would like to tour. I know we've been talking about it. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Putting it out to the entirety of Australia and the world right now via Heavy Mag, and the people want it.
If you guys want it, let us know. We'll do it. I want to do it.
I will help you pressure your bandmates into making that happen. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I would love to. I love touring. I love gigging, and I just love playing music. And if I can do that in front of as many different people as I possibly can, I'm happy.
Yeah, hell yeah. Do you prefer gigging over the recording process?
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
No, I hate the recording process.
I mean, that was probably a really dumb question to ask after what you've just said and how long Minos has taken. And
well, and also, we've had a lot of fun gigs recently, and I just went through, 5 years of not fun recording time. But I mean, it depends on the day. Some days I will have a lot of fun recording, I'm really on a ball with this. I've got 20 layers of harmonies that are going to get buried in the mix, and I enjoyed making them all. There's something about that pursuit of the perfect take that I enjoy as well. It's frustrating, but it's also like, oh, I'm going to get it.
And watching it all come together is quite exciting, actually hearing it, there's a difference between that physical aspect of performing something and then watching something come to life outside of yourself is quite fun. Yeah.
But I do love gigging. Again, it's that adrenaline that we were talking about that just comes out when you're on stage and you don't really think about anything else. You're not thinking, oh, I hope I sound good. Oh, I hope I hit that note right. It's no, I'm going to perform in front of these people and I'm going to entertain and I'm going to take you on a journey with me, whether you want to come or not. And I'm going to sweat all over you and it's going to be great.
And possibly aggressively sing Backstreet Boys into people's faces.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's still one of my favorite things I've ever seen. Just for
I've been experimenting with that.
For context, you chucked a Backstreet Boys song in one of your just a little section of one of your songs when I saw you guys live. Where was that? Bendy? The Bendy?
Bendy.
Yeah.
Bendigo Hotel.
It was a vibe.
Well, we've been playing that song live since our first gig. It's a song that goes into every set. And there's only so many times that second verse, there's only so many times I can do it verbatim.
Yes.
And once I realized that there was sort of this I can throw a lot of songs in there. Okay.
That's the beauty of pop songs too, is that you can,
right.
there's a lot of them that will fit in those little slots, which is always a bit
Stevie
fun.
Wonder, Superstition, that fits in there well.
I expect that. I'll be waiting for that at the next gig then.
There's a few. I'll surprise you.
All right. Well, we should probably wrap it up so that we can both get to having our dinner, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm hungry.
Yeah. So before we do, where can people find you and your music online? Do you have physical copies of the album available?
We do. The best place to look for that would be on our Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of where everything gets linked out of. I'm also looking into doing vinyl releases because I love vinyl. I love vinyl so much. So that's something that I'm looking into. I would really like to make it happen. But for now, we do have physical CD.
Just make one copy just for you.
I might, honestly, I might. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple Music. It's on, I believe it's on Bandcamp now. So if you want to buy it, download it there. It's on YouTube. It's anywhere wherever you get your music, you'll find it. Just look up Verona Lights, Minos, or hit our Facebook page. Everything's linked there. For
people to get a hold of a physical copy, they just DM you on Facebook.
I think so, yeah. I don't know if we've put them up on the store yet, on the merch store. I will double check that. By the time this comes out, they'll be on the merch store.
Yeah, that's your first job to do when we wrap things up. Awesome. Well, I hope you enjoy a ton of success with this album. I think it's a really solid piece of music, and I can't wait to hear what you guys are going to come out with next. And thanks for chatting with me today.
Thank you so much. This has been really fun.
I'm Ez, and this has been my chat with Brendan of Verona Lights. Make sure you check out the new album Minos on your preferred music streaming platform, preferably from start to finish, for the ultimate experience. And look out for the band playing shows around Melbourne. I know they would absolutely love the support. Tell them Heavy sent you. And hopefully you'll see them touring around the country in 2024. Thanks for listening, and remember, life is better when it's heavy.